We have a question here from Melissa, and she asks, I have some very personal and sentimental things that aren't worth a lot of money, but when I'm gone, I don't want my family fighting over them. Do you have any suggestions for how to handle this? And I kind of like to jump in on this one, if you don't mind, because I actually hear this one quite a bit in the Creating Goodwill seminar. What happens is people will say, you know, my parents did a great job of looking at the financial things, but we had a lot of things that had sentimental value from our childhood, and we didn't really talk about those. And now we're fighting about who's going to get those. So some ideas, Melissa, that I always say is one thing that you can do is to, while you're, this is why it's great to do this when people are alive, although this can also happen if you're the heirs, you can do this afterwards, which is to go through and really list out all of these items they might be. And they might be something as simple as a kitchen item. You know, oftentimes there's something, seems to be bowls or spoons or something that have great sentimental value to people. And then if there are things that 2 or more people want, you have to have a way to divide those. And I've heard some very creative stories about this. I've heard people doing things like putting names in a hat and people, you know, picking out and they get the first choice, or rotating through, sometimes from oldest to youngest or youngest to oldest. I'd be in favor of the youngest to oldest because I'm the youngest, so I'd want first choice. Or you might, I heard one really creative one where a family used Monopoly money and had a kind of a fake auction, you know, and got to do this. And again, not all of the things about estate planning have to be approached with a heavy heart, and, you know, having a lighter approach can help people get through this as well. But I thought those were creative. One of the workshops I did, I was amused because we were talking about going through the house, the kids were doing this and putting sticky notes on things to what they wanted. And afterwards, a gentleman came up to me and said, I just want to say something to you. Make sure you tell your audiences sticky notes can be moved, because that's what happened in our family. We came in after my parents died, and suddenly my sister was getting things that we all thought we were getting. So I thought that was kind of an amusing reminder to us about how we manage this process. And I bet, Lydia, you would talk about something about writing these things down in a more formal way. So I'm going to ask you to jump in on that, maybe.
Yes, typically I would recommend you can do one of 2 things. You know, if you want it to be legally binding, then you want to make sure that those descriptive items are included in your will and given to certain individuals. If you don't want to go that far, then a memorandum of wishes is appropriate, and that's something that you can do in your own handwriting by describing the item and who will receive it. And again, your executor can pull out that memorandum when you pass away and carry out those wishes and make sure certain individuals get items that you know they would have really appreciated.
That's great. This is why it's good to have a lawyer on the panel.
I'll just add that,
sure.
you know, in our research actually around that, we found that only 2 in 5 were actually sharing the location of these documents. So that's something like a memorandum, right? So something so important, but only, you know, 40% are actually sharing these details as to where these documents or these papers are. So I think, again, that's really important, right, in the whole scope of communicating our intentions for our estate plans with our.
So don't just write them down.
Yes.
Make sure people know where they are.